Welcome to episode 284 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. And joining me, as always, Donna Grindle from CardenHQ.com. In case you don't know where to find it. You can't just Google Carden.
Well, yeah, if you know those people that make speakers,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Donna's like, we don't sell speakers, but we are speakers.
There you go. Oh, but don't bump. It's good.
Yeah. So how's things going in your neck of the woods?
Right now, right this minute.
I know the answer to that. Things are
Look,
crazy.
I'm just trying to close out, get my work done, keep my head down, stay under the radar. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like with 2020, we're trying to just like slide into home base. It's like I just need to get there.
I know. Yeah, just it's more like doing a limbo that keeps getting lower and lower.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm already on my
Yeah.
back. Just put me on a roller, push me through.
Yeah, that's where we're at. But I mean, we've got all these. It's assessment season for us, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, everybody's asking me when I'm going to get stuff done. That just creates a dish of stress from
It's on
time
my
to time.
list. It's on my
Most
list.
of the time, I just ignore it.
If you're like me, it's like it's on my list. I just can't find the list. I don't know which list I put it on.
Speaking of list, it's been on our list to have Erik join us again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And we've managed to work it out and not screw it up.
I know. How about that? Yep. So today we're going to be doing an interview with Erik Decker, and we're talking about HICCUP.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when this
And
first,
some other things.
yeah, always other things.
Yeah.
But I remember when this first came out, and you and I were arguing about should we call it HICCUP or should we call it HICP?
Yeah, we decided on hiccup before we heard that it was hiccup.
Yeah,
So
we did.
I'm sure you're taking credit for that.
I mean, I say it all the time, but this is just more evidence. You know, powers that be listen.
That or we're just as smart as the other guy. So that being said,
Mm-hmm.
we got an opportunity to talk about some of the stuff we've just done episodes on, like all of the ransomware attacks in healthcare and information blocking and a wide variety of things. And it was a great conversation because we're doing this after so as not to create any kind of we're not like they do on TV where they tell everybody to pretend it's like the day before Christmas and then they film stuff in July.
Yeah, you get the little snow shakers out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they filmed a Christmas movie, because Atlanta, there's all this filming stuff that happens now. And on the other side of the main road up here, they filmed a Christmas movie. It was one of the last movies Robin Williams did, but I think it's Happy Friggin' Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But they were filming it like we were all, people were getting their lawn chairs and sitting out and watching them film it at night.
Wow.
Yeah. So that, we do get to witness the beauty of cinematography.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey.
Everybody's wondering,
Anyway.
like, why is everybody sweating on the set? It's the middle of December.
Yeah, all the fans, they got all this stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, but in other news, we do have the HIPAA Boot Camp coming up, virtual edition, first one of 2021 already in the books.
Well, it's not.
It's
we're doing it. We're
that's
doing
what
it. And people are signing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So get out there, get your info, get it in your budget, and it's at
thehipaabootcamp.com.
There you go.
Yeah. So February 23, 24, 25, that will be here before you know it. Like that is not far away.
And think of all we got to do between now and then.
I know. So
well, just think about where we were in 2019 at this point, and then February, we were starting to hear about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, We were so naive at that time.
We were
So
not
looking
prepared.
forward to 2020.
Yeah.
So join us in 2021.
2021. Yep. Be the virtual edition. And we've talked more about that in past episodes, so you can go check those out. And by the way, if you don't know, we are on YouTube.
Yes.
So if you want to see our pretty smiling faces as we record and all the crazy looks that Donna gives me when I say stupid stuff.
Like that.
I did notice the other day, I said at the very beginning of the video, I said the title of the episode and Donna's got head goes sideways. And I'm like, what just happened?
Well, you started saying the episode numbers and you didn't normally do that. So,
Yeah. So, anyway.
I'm like a puppy. What?
Yeah. What just happened here? Like,
that's not one of my words.
He changed the format and didn't tell me.
All right. So check out info on the HIPAA Bootcamp and go check us out on YouTube. You can find us on there, or I think we have a link from the website. If not, David should make one.
I should make one. What do you think it should be? What, helpmewithhipaa.com/YouTube?
Yeah.
That sound good?
Might work.
All right, cool.
There you go.
How do you spell
Done.
YouTube?
Okay. So let's get to the interview with Erik. It was great as always.
Yep.
Always love having him on the show. And he is he's a willing participant. So we, gonna have him back. There's some great things we talked about and excited to share it with you.
So wait a minute. How many people do we have on the podcast that aren't willing participants other than you and me?
That's my point.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it with Erik Decker, and we'll talk more about everything after the interview.
All right, David, we've both been excited to get Erik Decker back on the show again, and it took some time, but he's here.
I know.
And now we have him on video, and he showed up anyway.
Yeah.
He's being seen with us now, not just heard.
Yeah. Not many people agree to come back a second time.
Or a third time, I think.
No, right. It's his third.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh, gosh. I forgot about
I believe
that.
I was your first, multi-series podcast or
Oh
something.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's a true glutton for punishment. So
Yeah.
thanks for joining us, Erik, and we're really excited because we want to talk about today how things are going with HICP, of course, but also just a discussion with you about the things that David and I have been covering recently in previous episodes that are going on in healthcare and some other things that we're seeing. So not to waste any time, how you doing?
I'm living the dream. Living the dream in isolation, having, switched an organization into a remote workforce, to dealing with the pandemic, to now working on the distribution of the vaccine, which is super exciting to see that actually is coming to fruition, and helping the organization through on getting that in place. But and then also dealing with things like national warnings of imminent threat of ransomware attacks, and many hospital systems getting shut down within a 48-hour period of time. It's I feel a little bit like a doomsayer here, but one of the things I've been talking about for several years has been my biggest fear is an attack against a regional system, not a specific hospital system, but many hospital systems within a particular region, and what kind of harm that could do. And just at the end of October, that's what we started seeing. It didn't happen necessarily regionally, but it happened nationally. And it happened, sort of widespread, and
During a widespread pandemic.
during a pandemic. Yeah, it's really awful. So it's trying times, that we're in.
Yes. I think 2020, she just keeps on giving.
Yep.
But I think along with we've got the ransomware alert. It came out. I was double checking last night. It came out the end of October.
Yep. October 28th.
27th, 28th. We've had a month And
Yep.
we're still, we haven't heard everything. Now, the groups that we work with that are forensics groups, I'm hearing from them and they're like, hey, can you answer questions if we need you? Those kind of things. So I know it's more rampant than the news shows. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, I definitely it is. So first of all, there's only, I think this is the third time that there's been a joint notice from now CISA, HHS, ASPR, and HC3. I know it rattled out a whole bunch of acronyms there.
Yeah.
But and the FBI, of course. So this is like one of those things where multi-federal agencies come together to issue these warnings. And the previous two times, the first one was WannaCry, and the second one was NotPetya. And now this one again is ransomware related. It's Ryuk. So I think the important thing to note there is when the feds sound the alarm like this, you have to take it seriously. Now, we can have all kinds of conversations about did it start off well? Was there enough information at the beginning? We all went through the same process there of trying to understand that. But it certainly raised, the heightened the awareness levels and the concern about what needs to happen. So what I can say is I know that there has been, I think it's about 400 healthcare institutions that are on a list by these threat actors, this Eastern European, Russian-speaking threat actors that are causing these attacks. And I think there was about a couple dozen maybe total that have been so far disrupted by it. But that's not to say that these guys are done, and no. It was just the first pass of it. And again, I know that there are 400 some people on 400 other hospital systems that are on these lists of potential targets from these actors. So it's scary. And it's moments like, this is a good moment for using things like HICP. This is a good moment for using things like HICTicker. Throw my acronyms out again.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to do to help prevent and respond to these actions, it can get you sort of laser focused in on what are some meaningful activities to get ahead of it, because you don't want to be behind it at all.
No, it's you don't want it to be too late to think about it.
That's right.
And that's what we've been trying so desperately to get the message out. And even if you're not on that list of 400, you may be the in, so to speak, that everybody's connected. They know it. They know there's a lot of data sharing. So if you're in the area with any of those 400, they're looking for ways in.
Yeah.
And
And I'll just, one other interesting just tidbit about how these threat actors work. This is actually one of those cases where it's a multi-crime syndicate organization, where it's one organization breaks in, gets their credentials, gets the privileges, and then they sell that off to the ransomers who want to use that to then deploy their ransom and extortion, actions. So it's not even that we're just talking about single groups here that are doing these things. And of course they change up, like, initially, to be a little technical here, they're talking about, it was TrickBot that was the initial phishing, mechanism that they were using. And then it switched to Bazaar Loader, and, it's just that's going to continue to happen. They're not going to just walk away because, they were found out in one instance. They're going to shift their tactics.
Well, and there's so many different elements. When you've got this group, they're just worried about getting in. Then they shift, or they split into two, or they do. It's a racket.
Well, totally. And money changes hands as that happens. They're selling. They sell that access. They sell. There's even guarantees of extortion. Like, we'll sell you X number of credentials, and we'll guarantee you $5,000 worth of fraud. And if you don't get it, oh, sorry, on us, here's a different set of credentials that'll get you that, that $5,000 of guaranteed fraud. That's that's who we're up against.
Yeah. And people don't get that. I don't think, when we talk passwords and all of that stuff, they see, this is so inconvenient. I know David deals with that daily.
Yeah, you would think after this year that you wouldn't hear anybody else say anything like, "Well, I can't possibly imagine that happening."
Mhm.
You know, but we
Yeah.
still hear it. It's like, "Oh, well, I don't, you know, that's the worst case scenario. I don't know that I'll ever happen." And I'm looking at like 2020. I mean,
That's totally valid. I mean, think of how many people talk about that with COVID in general. You know, like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. It'll happen. You know, it's not that big of a deal until it happens to you, and it's the worst thing in the world.
Right.
yeah,
You know,
'cause-
and so that's actually kind of a human nature thing, unfortunately. You know, and so it's trying to get ahead of that message and demonstrating, you know, that importance is crucial. So I mean, here's another thing. Like, why do they go after healthcare? These ransomers and extortionists, because the impact of losing access to your systems and the ability to, you know, to shut down a practice is so impactful. It's so incredibly impactful that they get their money. You know,
Yeah.
it's highly successful, and there's weakness, you know, because healthcare generally still, unfortunately, is a bit behind the times. So they're prime targets for all of this, you know, and
Yeah, and you've
that's,
got, not only do you have the problem of I'm not going to worry about it, but I am so overwhelmed I can't worry about it,
yeah,
is the flip side. And I'm sure institutions like yours, you know, you guys are, you know, just awake at night, because there are times that I'm awake at night because of conversations I've had with our clients, and I don't have to have that every day.
yeah.
So congratulations on you guys getting through it so far.
Please don't jinx it.
Don't jinx it. I'm not going to say, oh, you're awesome. No.
yeah,
Yeah.
Not
Don and
gonna
I
do
were
that.
talking. Maybe it was last episode. I'm not sure which, but we were talking about how with vendors and how much access they have now in different areas, that the organization can be doing everything right and have
Mhm.
everything locked down the way it should. But then you have this third party business associate, or even sometimes not even a business associate, it's just a vendor.
Mhm.
You know, think about Home Depot, Target.
Yep.
You know, and all of a sudden they cause this big, huge breach for you.
Yeah.
So it's just another thing to worry about.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the ecosystem of connectedness within the healthcare environment is so integrated, and it has to be, because that's how healthcare runs. And so that's, you know, another reason for having solid third-party risk management programs is really, really important. We don't really cover that in HICP per se, but there is another document from the Healthcare Sector Coordinating Council, the HICSCRIM.
Yep. We
Supply
covered
chain
it.
management. Oh, you did? Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great template to use and to consider. You know, I like to think about it in maybe two facets, perhaps three facets, which is, there's obviously a connectiveness piece to this. You know, so you might have some type of connectivity, be it that, you know, these vendors need to be able to log into your systems to do some of their work, or maybe you have permanent, you know, connections with them, VPN tunnels, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
That action right there has nothing to do with data. It has everything to do with access. And so
Exactly.
you got to be careful about that. You've of course got the data element of this, you know, where they're either in your environment, you know, working with sensitive information, or perhaps you're shipping them data and they're providing a data service to you. And so you might not have a connectedness, you know, piece there, but you do have risk of the data potentially being misappropriated or misused. And so you got to be on top of that. And some of those contracts and those supplier relationships are not technology relationships. So that's one way that organizations they might lose it, you know, because they think like, well, technology is not involved. We don't need to involve IT or cybersecurity. And they're like, no. This is a professional services engagement where we're sharing our information off to you. We're disclosing the information. So it's equally as important, you know, that we cover all of that. So for the listeners, I would really focus in on both of those things. Don't just get so locked in about the data, because I still think there's a lot of that. Like, well, there's no PHI, so it doesn't matter. No, there's the ransom risk, the ecosystem, the cyber attack risk is the one that you have to manage here. The resiliency, you know, associated to keeping your systems up.
That's the hamster on a wheel thing, right?
Yeah.
That's funny because I just got an email a couple of days ago. I shared part of it with Donna. It was fortunately not a client, but it's kind of one of these people that call when they need you kind of things. And they had a breach of their email account, and their response was, well, yeah, there's sensitive information in there, but I don't think it's PHI, so I don't think we have to worry. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
We're not even going to look. We think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know about your organization, but we have been encouraging everybody to evaluate the vendors more specifically. And oh, well, I only have to worry about the ones I have a BAA with.
Mhm.
Okay, but wait, you're going to let them get into the air conditioning system? Is it segmented? Is anybody worried about that? There's a lot more to it today. And every time you connect something, you're connecting something, and people
Yeah.
don't get it. So that is one of the things that we're hoping we can use HICP to promote, because it does talk about medical devices.
Mhm.
I was doing an assessment and just this week, and people are doing great. They're going down through there, and then we ask them about devices that might not, do you have anything that's not encrypted that has PHI? Well, we have this ultrasound machine,
Mhm.
but it's not. It's password protected and it's in the office. Can it move?
Mhm.
You know, so those kinds of little pieces and parts are one of the things that we hope we can promote through HICP without having to say HIPAA.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so HICP is 2 years old now. And maybe we should say for the listeners, they might not even ever heard about this thing before.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
a
let's do
little
that.
recap of what the hell is this thing?
Yeah.
Heck, sorry.
Yuck,
So,
yuck, yuck.
so just a quick little, recap. So Health and Human Services pulled together a task group through a legislative mandate under the Cybersecurity Act of 2015. And within that act, there was a section called 405D, which calls for aligning cybersecurity practices across the healthcare industry, and it being in partnership with the federal government and led by industry. So 2017 or 16, I'm losing track of my years, HHS formed the original group for how we were going to come together and manage that. That's when I got involved, and they asked me to be the industry lead for that effort. And the first publication that we created as a result of this multifaceted public and private group was the development of this document called the Health Industry Cybersecurity Practices, Managing Threats and Protecting Patients, or HICP, HICP. So that document really covers, it stratifies best practices for small, medium, and large organizations. It's very specific to to which one you are, small, medium, or large, around managing the 5 most common threats that we face within the healthcare industry. The team, we released it in December 28th of 2018. I remember the day. I was very happy, very proud of it.
The baby was born.
It was born. It's a toddler now. It's walking. But the group didn't disassemble. In fact, it came back together again, and we're working on all kinds of different elements of this. So one is updating HICP to keep it modern and fresh. We have a group that's working on educational materials as a component of HICP. So different ways of engaging with the community, and David and Donna, have been wonderful partners in that group to develop some content there. And then we have a third group that is focusing on enterprise cybersecurity as a component of enterprise risk management, and really building a framework for how this is now for mostly the mediums and larger size organizations, but how you bring cyber to the top level, to the board level, to the senior executive level, and the methodologies associated to that, to see if we can get something a little more consistent, across the industry. So that's the basis. When we say HICP, and we're talking about that, and 405D, that's the genesis of this conversation.
Yeah, we've got to come up with a better name. Everybody keeps talking about that. We have to have like a snazzy little name.
Well, we're kind of, what we're trying to do is like what Kleenex did, right? So what Kleenex is tissue paper. So we're trying to like 405D is the thing. It's going to take time. It is a little, people think it's a 401k or a 403B or.
Yeah, we need some marketing help because clearly we were worried about cybersecurity and still are.
Yes.
But it is very interesting. And if you do want to be part of the, participate in the group, we certainly can connect you. You can just send an email to, what is it? The
CISA 405D at hhs.gov.
Yeah, there you go. And we'll have that on the website so that you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe someday there'll be orientation.
Yeah. We'll get there.
I did
That's
find
an
out you
inside
can't.
thing.
I did find out you can't join and just sit there.
No,
That's
don't
correct.
do that. Don't do that.
Eric will call you out.
That happened to David.
I'm in my second meeting and I'm still trying to figure out, who's the players in this thing and what's everybody's role and really trying to figure things out. Next thing I know, I hear Eric go, "David, that'd be perfect for you to volunteer for. Thank you." Okay.
It's great to be known. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and that's when I go, yes, me and Donald will be glad to do that.
Yeah, but it was one of the areas I was already working on anyway, so we're good.
Yep.
Kinda. I just don't want to work with David. But
yeah, she's like, "What did you volunteer me for?" I was like, "I don't really know."
But for those who haven't had a chance to go, we've done several discussions about HICP, the value we see in it. We've had multiple interviews with Erik discussing it. There are 5 threats that it evaluates. And I tell people those 5 threats apply to any business. This is not healthcare only. And the fact that it's broken down to small, medium, and large, it takes it in a similar way to the CIS-20, the CIS-20 approach that they're doing. But it gives you the not technical and the technical.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it hard to do these updates and publish things that are helpful.
Yep.
But if you follow 405D at, is it Ask 405D on Twitter, they're putting out a lot of good information. I love the prescription bottle for, so there's some tools that can help with your education program. They can help with you making decisions. They can help you make the business decisions about what risks to worry about. I don't know, maybe ransomware. And I want to do things for ransomware. You can actually go there and see, if I'm worried about ransomware, what should I do?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. In fact, so the document itself is 250 pages. I mean, it's big. Right. But this is not one of those things you read front to back. Unless
you're a nerd like me,
right? Or you're writing the thing like me.
Yeah.
But like the main document is really like probably the easiest to consume. Because it's not technical at all. And then the technical volumes, of course, I think of that more of like an encyclopedia or a recipe book. Where you want to dig in and like do some work on enhancing your email protection schemes, or what do you need to do on the endpoint, or network related or medical device. Those are all different practices that break themselves out into very specific, not instruction, but it's more like, I think of it like as a catalyst. So it helps you get over the hurdle of understanding all that content that's out there. Because we didn't want to create new content. We didn't want to like this great series in NIST, the NIST 800 series that talk a lot about cybersecurity stuff. You already mentioned the CIS Top 20. We actually aligned to CIS Top 20 in HICP. So we're trying to synthesize all of that into something that just is very actionable. Like, You want to do an EDR, deployment, great. These are the things that you need to consider as you're doing that. And then we also have tools in the back end, to help augment this. We built a whole threat matrix, threat to practice matrix. So if you want to, put some protections in place around ransomware, well, we've done the mapping for you that shows you directly what's going to, get you the biggest bang for the buck, and then indirectly what's going to get you some, additional bang for the buck. Not everything in HICP is equal to protecting against ransomware as an example. But that's how it can be used in a flexible manner.
I love the updated matrix, and
yes.
It's not the easiest thing to find. So let us know if you want it.
Yeah, but there is going to be a website coming. I'm telling you, COVID really messed everything up.
Yeah, it was in the master plan for this year. I mean,
it was.
I was in on the fall meetings, and it was so like, oh, this is going to be great. And things look like, I remember that first meeting, in January, we were all excited. We're going to have the meeting in person.
Mm-hmm.
And then Delta still has my money. They have like a good bit of my money. So we got to get to where I can go places again.
Yeah.
But I think that if, our big thing that we started discussing in our last, overall group meeting is how to get the word out more. And anybody that is our listeners, they'll send us stuff, which, by the way, thanks to Treat for his $50 donation to us for Tuesday Giving Day.
Oh, cool.
It is greatly appreciated, but I did get a anonymous message that the money was for David to buy a nicer dress to wear, and please don't make it low cut. So I had to acknowledge that donation, and that's fun. Yeah. Anyway, but overall, if you guys out there want to participate, you have some ideas of how we can use these things, or you want to do some things with it, please let us know, because we really want to get the word out. These tools are great. And it helps communicate between the non-technical and the technical. That's my favorite part about it. Especially the small, when we go in and we're working with several startups that are, let's say, there's some that are dealing with COVID kind of things. And so they're just flying at 100 miles an hour, but they need to do these things. So we're using the small HICP guide and saying, okay, let's start here to get that done. If you are a large entity and you've done nothing, go to the small HICP guide, please, post haste. And but they help with that. I don't know what to do. And the main guide is great education. So anybody that's got some ideas, we're open to hear it. Please let us know. I just had to get that plug out there before I forget, because my brain's like an Etch-a-Sketch. But Erik has done, a ton of work and donated a ton of time, and your employer has as well. So I am excited about what we have the potential to do with this stuff, and especially taking that. You can walk into a group that has not paid attention. What is it, David? The doctor? HIPAA?
HIPAA.
I saw somebody say that in a post the other day, HIPAA schmippa, and I'm like, where did they get that? But you could take that in. It's not talking about HIPAA. It's talking about your business risk.
Yep.
And I think that's a lot of our conversations in what we've been doing with the educational material, which should come out soon.
Yep. I think it's going through clearance right now. I mean, I've already signed off on it. So
yesterday we did some updates you'll get to see, but
okay.
But I was really pleased with where it was.
Right.
Really excited about it, and gonna miss Anna, who's leaving the group. So
yeah. There's also, just other resources. We do the 405D post as well. It's I think every other month. And that's actually on a website. So you can go to the healthsectorcouncil.org and / the 405D post, or just Google 405D post and you'll find it. It should take you right there. Probably easier. But that's a newsletter that is put out by the 405D team, and every other month it's a member of the task group that actually takes a topic, of interest. It's not necessarily directly pulled from HICP, but it's something that is relevant to to what's going on. So I wrote the first article and I did it on a simple enterprise risk management model to use, like super easy, super clean. It probably won't work for like a huge, large organization that's, trying to understand this, but somebody who's just trying to get their head around, like, what is cyber and ERM and how does this even work? Like, it's like a page and a half, article with some visuals on, how this stuff sort of comes together. And there's just been other great contributors, to that post as well. So I would recommend people look at that too.
I don't know, David, maybe we need to have a repository in our resources of all these things out there for everybody. That's work for you to do on your free time.
Thank you.
But Eric
I'm not the
can
only
tell
one
you
that
all
does
the
it.
stuff.
Yeah. I only need 2 hours of sleep. That's
right. Well, I don't know what you're asking for these days, but so to kind of wrap up the HIPAA,
yeah, it's hard.
the HICP specific stuff.
Sure.
We know we've got the educational materials, which I think are great. They're coming out, and not just because I worked on them, but and then we're looking at doing some updates to add more content and I don't know. It's add more content and create more details.
Yeah. So I think some of it is, we've actually looked at the 10 practices. We're actually adjusting a couple of, I think mostly one of them. We're expanding, practice 10 to be more robust from just policies to more governance and oversight in general. And that was, as all things, you produce a first product and then you mature that product, you hear feedback, you figure out what, where the deficiencies are, and you scale it up. So I think there's that. There's, many of the practices are very robust in their practicality and kind of going back to what I was talking about before, just like helping you step into this and make progress. Some of them are not as robust. And so we're going to really be, bolstering those areas to get a little bit more helpful, I think, for folks.
Yeah, a little bit more detail.
More detail. Yeah, more content. I mean, we're not trying to make this thing, thousands of pages long. I mean, that would not be meaningful, but definitely something that can help you get over the hurdle a little bit more.
Well, and cybersecurity is changing.
Totally.
Since 2018.
And to that end, like some of those things that we called out in HICP 2 years ago were like the creme de la creme. And now they're kind of like, is it really still the creme de la creme, or are there other things that are better off? I mean, it really has changed that much already in just 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's always a good time to take stock and make sure that the industry as a whole really believes that these are the practices that we should be we should be advocating for, because I think that's one of the beautiful things about HICP is it's an industry sort of statement of what is hygiene look like, and to manage against the threats that we face. So yeah, so that's what this wave 2 that we call it internally, this designation. That's what that group is working on, and our goal is we really want something to come out in 2021, and so I hope that we're going to get there.
We'll do our part.
Yes.
You bring up a good point that I want to kind of emphasize, is that if you're, as an organization, if you're still doing the same thing you were doing 3, 4, 5 years ago, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It changes that rapidly. There's many times I go into an organization, they're like, yeah, we did all that stuff 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm like, dude, that's a lifetime. You can't keep doing the same old stuff. And I see it often. I even see IT companies that are still doing the same things they were doing 5 years ago, which is very scary.
I mean, just this pandemic alone, I mean, if you didn't adjust and change, then that's probably problematic, because it introduced so much variance, into how we do our business, and you have to secure that, so yeah.
Well, and to remember and reiterate, if people didn't see it before, healthcare is a critical infrastructure industry. Number one. And number two, it's about caring for patients, and our work is what, is that we prevent that one last PETA that keeps them, from going over the edge sometimes, because they're moving at such a pace in some of these hot spots that if things are slowed down in any way and they're exhausted, so many of them haven't, we talk about how long it's been, and so many of them haven't had a day off since then.
Yeah.
So I see it as important that we're doing our part to support those that are providing care, and trying our best to keep the ransomware out and keep the hygiene going and all of that at the same time. And so many people see cybersecurity. I heard a conversation on, I don't know, one of the cyber podcasts where they were talking about how they were talking about the role of the CISO, whatever, you want to call it today, became the party of no. And that's what everybody saw them as. And I think it's important that through things like HICP, we're able to start to communicate different. And David and I even just did an episode on the importance of us communicating the information and listening to the needs of the people we're supporting. And in this environment, we've had to bring that to the forefront. And if you haven't, you're missing out on some important message that you should be getting.
Yep. I like that new tagline that we've been talking about in 405D is cyber safety is patient safety. And
yes,
absolutely true. I mean, just look at all these ransomware cases that have happened. There's a New York Times article that just sort of described the impact at the University of Vermont of what happened there. And chemotherapy patients couldn't be seen, and that is absolutely a patient safety thing. They couldn't get critical treatment, and so and that's because the systems were down. So it's not, this isn't about the I don't want to discount the medical device security. It's incredibly important, and everybody is still to a degree, worried about the hack the pacemaker and cause a shock kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's not. It can happen, don't get me wrong, or the infusion pump, sort of hack. Those things can happen. But what's really happening now is the systems are being taken offline, they're being disrupted, they're not being able to be used for care purposes, and then indirectly the patients are suffering because of it. And that's absolutely occurring, and so like that's patient safety. That's what cyber safety, patient safety means. And we've got to get better at that.
Yeah. And that is absolutely it.
That whole first do no harm, the Hippocratic Oath. I mean, they really need to go back and say, look, this includes cybersecurity, folks.
And we tried that message. They didn't care for it.
Yeah, I bet.
And I think part of the problem, I'm call on the CISOs here too. Part of the issue here is we don't get to stand up on a high horse and, dictate and say yes or no, or, play traffic cop. If that's the route that you're taking, you're not going to be successful, because the business is going to move around you. So you have to be a business enabler first and foremost. Like you got to be a solutioner.
Yes.
You've got to be at the table, hearing what the needs are, and then and like motioning people left or right. Like, okay, let's do this. Let's get this done. But let's consider these options as well with these risks and such. And then you're at the table and you're solving problems instead of at the table creating problems for the business, trying to figure out, how do we get around these cyber people because they just get in my way all the time, so if that's your approach, that's been the approach in healthcare, and that's where we are today. So just, consider that, I guess, as well.
It's really time for change, and it's a message that we're doing our best to get out there. And for 5 years our tagline has said it's not about compliance, it's about patient care,
Right.
for a reason. So I hope that more people see it that way, because these folks on the front lines, they need all the help they can get and support they can get. So let's don't create any kind of blockage to their ability to manage what they're overwhelmed by. So, and ransomware, key element. But I don't want us to go too far down that rabbit hole. So let's go to the last couple of episodes. David and I talked about some of these new topics, and I want to get your input on the impact that you think the information sharing changes that are rolling out. They were supposed to be, but like everything else, they've been put off until 2021. We discussed, I see even a lot of people in their presentations say, well, we anticipate that it'll be providers and business associates that are the ones doing the information blocking. And
21st
they're
century
pretty,
cures.
huh?
21st century cures. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. And to me, I look at this and say, if they're doing the right thing under patient right of access, which has been a huge thing, the providers can't do much more. They if they do the right thing there and they follow that rule, I don't see information blocking being the big issue. Let's just focus on that. But boy, these vendors, and I know that you deal with a vast number more than we have to. So what do you see as the impact going to be, or is?
Yeah, I think first of all, the just 21st century cures, right of access, information blocking. This was one of to sort of orient everybody. It was a rule that was within the legislation of the 21st century cures, that I think actually came out in 2016, and there's different sections and provisions that had different enforcement dates to it. And so the ONC is the regulator on a component of it, and then CMS also has a piece to this. I like to think of it as like meaningful use version 3, to a degree, because if you really think about what meaningful use was about, was interoperability and getting the data digitized and in the hands of the patients. And that was what its initial hope was supposed to be. So get everybody into the EMRs, and then suddenly and magically everything will flow back and forth, and people won't have to walk up with paper charts everywhere they go, and it's just accessible, right?
Right.
So it wasn't about getting a check.
That was the carrot to come along. And there were, I don't want to poo-poo this. There were definitely elements of interoperability and exchange that happened because, you got in, into the EMR. But some elements of that full exchange of information, or even just giving the information back to the patient themselves. And under HIPAA, you have a right of access clause on the privacy rule that they have a right of access to get to their medical information. So, that's kind of why I couch this whole 21st century cures and info blocking as either a meaningful use addition or a right of access clause, because it's about getting the patients ultimately in the next couple of years all their new term electronic health information, which is essentially everything in the designated record set, back into the hands of the patients in the manner and means by which they want to consume it. So that can mean, like, your patient portal, and going to the patient portal and getting access to it there. But it could also mean that, some mobile app developer has created an app that fits the standards that have been defined within the rule. And you want that app to connect to the EMR that you're participating in, and you have to deliver that information to the patient because they asked for it. So what the info blocking component to that is that the hospital systems and providers will not block the delivery of that information in the means that the patient has asked for it. With one, there are 8 exceptions to the rule that you can follow, and the big one that people are talking about is harm. So, and this is big discussions going on right now. It's like, think about lab results and test results. Huntington's disease is the biggest one that is the big use case. So if you have a prognosis of Huntington's disease, it's a terminal disease and there's nothing you can do about it. Do you want to really release that to the patient before there's been a consultation with the provider? Or would that actually cause, potential mental anguish or harm or worse to somebody who receives that diagnosis before they actually have, a way of counseling, the conversation? So things like that are where organizations are at right now, sort of discussing, what fits within these particular exceptions. When do you release? When do you not release? And it's not so much not releasing ever. It's just more about like, at what time frame do you do it under?
Right.
While still sort of maintaining the reasonableness and accessibility back to the patient. I think it's actually a fantastic rule. I mean, as a patient, I love the idea of being able to have my information from any of the various places that I go in one spot, so that I can easily share that, with a new provider that I'm coming to. I mean, heck, we're still using faxes today.
No.
As crazy as that sounds. And like, so maybe think of like 21st century cures as the death of the fax, because that's that's one of the things that we're trying to do is get rid of having to use those kinds of things.
They have to have in healthcare courses in college, they have to have a special class on what a fax is, I'm sure. No one knows what they are. And I mean, one of the areas though I thought was interesting is on the exceptions, because from the provider side, one of the things is I can't integrate with these other systems without paying enormous fees.
Yeah.
And so that reasonable profit, I think, it to us in that part of it is, as a small provider, I can want to do the right thing, but if they won't give me the data unless I pay $25,000 a year, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I think that's going to make a huge difference because the health systems, the world is different for you guys. A $25,000 budget item is like bold on, a lot of the groups we work with.
Yeah.
But, and the other area that I really want to know if you've heard discussions about is the ruling that, health systems can donate cybersecurity. We just did an episode on that and what those rules say. There's a lot of concerns that we had. If you guys are talking about it, go listen to the last episode because
and I haven't listened to it, so who knows if I'm going to say
well, it's not out yet. It's not out yet. You can't. But I'm interested to know what from that side. We don't get to hear that.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to Stark Law and anti-competitive restrictions that are in place. But again, kind of going back to this whole concept of the ecosystem that we all work in. The rule is, and again, I have not unpacked this to a degree, so I apologize for anybody listening.
I know I threw it on you.
Yeah, especially the lawyers are going to say Erik is wrong. But the rule is ultimately that I think it's CMS that says you can donate cybersecurity services, and there's definitely definition around what those services are, if it's software or hardware, those kinds of things, to affiliated entities, affiliated practices. So these are practices that are not owned by your health system. So the big question is like, why would a big system, donate cybersecurity services out to these affiliations? there's a few reasons. One is one thing you just talked about, Donna, about $25,000 is a lot of money for these providers. Yet at the same token, the health environment, the health ecosystem and industry is moving into these big networks, where people don't necessarily practice on their own anymore. And or in the next 10 years they won't. You're going to be affiliated in one way or another with one or multiple networks that are out there. And every single, if you think about a hub and spoke kind of situation, every single spoke to the main health system is an entry of risk into the whole ecosystem. And if you're going to obligate the practices to meet a certain level of cybersecurity hygiene before they can affiliate with you, chances are they're not going to be able to have the capital and the dollars to do that. So now, previous to this rule, you couldn't give this away to them as an incentive, to join in. And so it was restrictive, in the ability. You can charge them for it, and that can be done. But then going back again, the $25,000 is a lot of money for them. It's a challenge there. So it's not so. I think about this as it's not so much. Well, it's about protecting the whole ecosystem and all of this. It's about them. It's also about the main hospital network. And kind of going back again to we hear a lot, like, for the small practices, why would they come after me? Well, maybe they'll come after you because they're interested in getting to your partner, and you're the weak link in that chain. And people like me look at that and go, "Oh, okay, what are we going to do to protect this? And what are the options that I have available to protect this system when you can't donate?" Now, we're not at my institution, that's not a thing that we're doing. It's something we're looking at. But I know that at other larger institutions, that is absolutely an ask that has been out there. They've got the capital, they've got the operating margins to be able to eat that loss, in order to allow for the system itself to be more secure.
Yeah. So, but it is. I mean, it makes sense from that standpoint. But if you don't have a firm boundary, because we see this when here's the net of it is, the difference between the clinics owned by the health system and the ones not. When we talk to the people in the clinics owned by the health system, well, I mean, David can speak to it probably is better than me, but they are kind of like the stepchildren.
Yeah.
So they're already not getting, on the ones they own, not getting, I get a ton of questions about training from people that work in that area that need advice, and they don't get it. There's a good number of those. So our concern that we're talking about is, if that's happening with the ones you own, what are you going to do to the ones, that you're donating? Because
my guess would be that the systems that are in that situation are not going to be donating services. If they're not managing their own clinics and that's not part of the family, then I don't think they're going to, well, I don't know.
But you ask them, they'll tell you they are.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't need no stinking cybersecurity.
Yeah. we know, we're prepared to hear hospital takes care of everything because they already tell us that.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah.
So encourage all of the people on your side to listen to the episode we're going to publish just before this one, where we talk about what we see as our concern about making sure there's some specific boundaries. But I wanted to know, really, from you, it is something that makes sense. We knew that, but how seriously, and how quickly will that evolve into something that anybody's doing? I just wanted to see your personal opinion, not the opinion of the universe.
Sure. Yes, because I think probably like 21st century cures, it takes time for this stuff to bake in and and people consume it and understand what it truly means.
Right.
So I wouldn't, let me say this. I know there are certain healthcare institutions that have been waiting for this.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be acting on it and happy about it. And those healthcare institutions are the ones that are much farther along in their affiliations, full integrated delivery network. They're the big systems that are out there that, like the really truly big systems. And that's, like I said before, I mean, the cost for them to do this, to donate it, is insignificant compared to the cost of what it would be on the practices themselves. I think for everybody else, it's going to be part of, it's a strategic decision as far as your business development strategy is concerned, and what your M&A strategy is. And you have to look at that as, what do you want to do? I mean, do you want to enforce, have these practices pay in, to the larger pie? Do you want to provide it as an incentive, to potentially join in? How does it ultimately fit into your ERM models, your enterprise risk management models, and what you're managing there? I will say, without naming technology vendors, these EMRs, like part of the genesis of this is like you for these non-affiliated practices is you actually offer up a part of your EMR to them. And so you're on shared platforms, kind of going again back to interoperability and everything we were talking about there. That does not come, it's not a SaaS model, where it's like all nicely compartmentalized and instanced and everything, and everybody gets their own little spot in the pie, and that's how it works. It's tightly integrated. So if you do that, there's just an expectation that security has to be in place at these practices. And so it's then a matter of the business decision. How are you going to do it? Are we going to donate it, or are we going to charge for it? And there's a financial model that has to be built there to understand the feasibility of it. The other thing I'll say, just kind of since we're talking about these practices, is another way you can use HICP for these larger health systems that are undergoing these, and it's not so much an acquisition as it is a partnership and affiliation. You could actually do an assessment against these practices pursuant to the small technical volume of HICP to get a sense of like, how risky is this? Where are they at? What's sort of the benchmark and where things are, and then use that as your overall strategy for how, like what you're going to do related to cyber, and within there. And so I think I've heard from somebody else that is actually doing that, and I thought it was just really cool.
I love the idea.
Yeah, and so like leverage HICP to be part of your risk model, of your risk assessment, or your questionnaires that you're sending out to these places to understand, like just benchmark them on where they're at.
All the vendors that I question will be able to blame you for that now.
Great.
Now there's another 100 questions we have to answer.
No, that includes David. So he hates it.
Yeah.
It's like a revenge for me.
Sure.
But I really, I know everybody's short on time, and but there's we could talk to you 100 times. So don't doubt, folks, that we'll have Erik back. Clearly, we all just jib-jab together. But you got anything that you want to add in a parting shot, Mr. Decker? I know Erik spelled the proper way.
Thank you. Parting shots. I honestly, I think the biggest thing that I just want to impress upon people is I know people think that hacks and such will not happen to them, and so it's hard to rally around putting cyber in place and going to the expense of doing that. The thing that I just want to impress upon you is it's guaranteed it will happen. Will it happen to you in particular as an individual? That's to be determined. But just like within the COVID pandemic, people are dying, and how we have, I won't get into the political side of this, but
Let's don't do
but
that.
it's happened, you know, and
Yeah.
it's guaranteed that people are going to be infected. It's guaranteed that people will die, you know, as a result of it, just based on the nature of this disease. And you know, you've got to take your precautions. You know, you've got to mask up, you've got to wash your hands, you got to socially distance, you know, in order to protect you and your loved ones. And it's the same way within cyber for all of this. These guys are out there, these criminal organizations are out there. It's $1 billion industry, multiple billions of dollar industry for fraud. And the unattended potential consequences of these attacks that are happening, which is not so much about, well, I mean, it is. It's about the theft of data. That's a way to monetize it, but it's also about the disruption of your environment as a way of monetizing it. And that's where this is all shifting, or maybe adding to, instead of saying shifting. It's just another way to, you know, to exploit your business. And, you know, just please take it seriously. There are definitely tools that we have produced that are out there that are free. You know, it just takes your time, you know, in order to do it, and work with wonderful people like Donna and David and their businesses to help you out.
And we didn't pay him to do that. That's awesome. Score.
All right.
Checks in the mail. Checks in the mail.
All right. Well, hope the rest of the year goes well for you, Eric.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we'll cross paths.
You bet.
Wink, wink. But thanks for your time. It's always appreciated. You're welcome back anytime. If you want to talk to us, you just let us know if we haven't
Sure.
called.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
All
Take
right,
care.
thank you.
All right. That was our interview with Erik Decker. Amazing, as always.
I know.
I always learn a lot. And the other thing is, like, he keeps up with all this stuff. I've been going, let me look at my notes about what that is. he's
I
on it.
warned
though.
him we were going to go down the path and wander aimlessly. He's always fun with that.
Yeah, he's on it. But love his insight, and the information he brings is always spot on.
And due to our scheduling issues, we couldn't just like keep talking as long as we normally like to, so that we could have drug it out into a couple episodes. So he's volunteered. I think he's volunteered to join us again sometime soon. And probably after we get some of these updates to HICP out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or, you know, additional HICP items.
right. And
We'll go with that.
we're waiting on you, Donna, to get those updates done. Well,
I have done my part. When that stuff comes out, my touches will be all over it.
Yeah.
If there's a typo, you go, I knew she was participating.
Yeah, we're just there to make sure HIPAA is spelled right, but it's not in there, so we don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
All right. So y'all check out HICP if you're not. There are so many ways to use it. Got ideas just talking with Eric. So don't hesitate to get out there and see how you can utilize it in your environments. There are many ways.
Yep. And just know it's HICP, or you can even Google 405D and it'll get you there. But
HICP, 405D. We'll do it together.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly. All right. Anything else, Donna, before we close them out?
I say we close them out, brother.
All right. We're going to send you home early, folks.
We don't know when it is. We're clueless.
We sure don't. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks for listening. And as always, be sure to follow us and share it out on your favorite social media, and join us now on YouTube. See our smiling faces and all the crazy antics we bring that you can't see from the podcast. Be sure to give us a rating on our podcast out. Leave a review. We still work for reviews, as always.
I know. And thanks to Carl for that fantastic review on LinkedIn. Oh, it's greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. And we do have donors out there. So if you want to donate, and we did have somebody donate, as we said on this episode when we recorded with Eric, somebody donated to the Black Dress David Fund or something like that. So much appreciated. And if you want to donate, please let me know. Shoot, if we get enough money, I'll wear a black dress.
Uh-oh.
I sure will.
There you go.
Maybe we should start one of those little thermometer donation things.
I think you'll keep moving the top unless I get you to commit. We'll be back on that.
I know. All right. So as always, remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.